Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the launch of CCW's review of business customers' experience in the water retail market. Please do use Slido to make any comments and be aware this is a live stream event which is also being recorded and will be available on our website afterwards. The market in England has been open for almost 6 years, and now is the right time to look at what it is delivering for business customers. Our wealth of evidence from research, business customer complaints, and our direct conversations with the sector tells us that many of the aspects of the market need to improve. Problems that should have been resolved soon after market opening have still not been addressed, and these can no longer credibly be described as teething problems. For the market to be successful, it needs to show it's delivering benefits. Customers should be getting better complaint handling, billing and customer service. They should be empowered to save water and money through improved consumption data, and in many cases, unfortunately, customers are simply not seeing this. Frictions in the market are well characterised. However, this is the first time a report has looked at the market purely from a customer's perspective and from market opening. The report draws together all the evidence of what customers are saying about the water retail market, and based on this evidence, it sets out clear recommendations on what needs to change, by when, and who needs to work to make the changes happen over the next year and beyond. Our recommendations do place actions on others: retailers, wholesalers, DEFRA, Ofwat and Mosul. And we want to work with the sector to deliver the changes that will bring real improvements and benefits for customers. And of course, today is the start of wanting your feedback on our recommendations. So our report aims to be both challenging and constructive, calling out what needs to change and where the opportunities for improvements are.
I hadn't been out to read the meter in years, so our bill was just an estimate of what we'd used. Our bill was so high, I knew something had to be wrong, but the company were really reluctant to do anything to help us.
We're a large chain, so really wanted all our accounts consolidated into one bill. It's never happened, and it turned out the retailer got our name wrong on the system. It caused us a lot of bother for something that should have been a simple request.
We had a leak which left us with a huge bill. We've tried to get it sorted, but we still haven't been refunded.
I didn't even realise that I could switch to a different water company until you mentioned it today. I don't really have the time to look into changing a new supplier, particularly with such little financial difference.
I make sure we're getting a good deal on our other utilities, but never really considered doing the same for our water.
I suppose we should really do more to save water, but it isn't a priority for us as the bill's low compared to our other utilities.
As a business, I think we need to know more about how we're using water to know where we can make water savings.
It's ridiculous. We owe them loads of money. Before the market opened, we knew the meter reader and they knew exactly where the meters were. We never had an issue with bills.
We have an account manager with our retailer, which is something at least. There always seems to be something going wrong with our accounts.
Hello, it's great to be able to share with you the main findings from our 5-year review. Our review has shone a spotlight on business customers' experiences of the water retail market over the last 5 years and has identified vital changes that need to happen. Within the report published today, we set out 22 recommendations across key areas of focus. Some of the recommendations centre around work that has already started, but many are new calls for action. In all instances, we make it clear in the report what actions are needed, when they need to be done by, and who will lead each recommendation. There will be many actions that we, CCW, will take the lead on, and there will be others where we'll be working in partnership with you on. Now, this work will shape CCW's work on behalf of business customers from now into 2025, although we do expect the majority of the actions to be completed by April 2024. Action is required now to improve the experiences of business customers. So the key areas of focus within the review include improving the complaints process, delivering bills based on accurate and frequently read meters, delivering greater ambition and focus on water efficiency from both water companies and retailers, increased smart metering for business customers, and market code process improvements. So between Christina and myself, we're going to set out the main recommendations falling under these areas and share some of the evidence that highlights that there is a clear need for urgent change.
As a consumer watchdog, the evidence we get from complaints is invaluable. With complaints from business customers to CCW increasing threefold since the market opened in England in 2017, we need to see some fundamental changes. First, looking at the end-to-end process of a customer's complaints journey, we know that businesses are frustrated when it comes to taking their complaint to alternative dispute resolution for a final decision if they consider their complaint remains unresolved. Because water companies don't provide retail customer services to business, they're not responsible for directly addressing complaints. This has resulted in alternative dispute resolution providers only considering the action of retailers when reaching a decision. Many customers tell us that they're reluctant to take a complaint to alternative dispute resolution once they know that the water company is not subject to the same scrutiny as their retailer. So by the end of 2025, we want to see changes made to water companies' licenses so that they, along with retailers, are equally accountable for delivering service through an ADR scheme that's binding on all parties. Of course, we'd rather customers not have to complain at all. That's why we get to the root cause of complaints in our review. In order to ensure that water companies and retailers place the right focus on business customers, we are continuing to work with Ofwat, Mosul water companies and retailers to develop strong incentives for all trading parties to improve the service delivery for businesses. These are through a measure of customer satisfaction for wholesale service performance commitments under the 2024 price review called BRMX and the new market performance framework. Setting strong incentives is an important recommendation that will improve customer service. We want that to include a drive to reduce the number of long unread meters to zero from the current level of 14% of all meters in the market. Those are meters that remained unread for 12 months or more. And we also want to make sure new market data is right first time through those incentives. With the main driver of complaints being billing and charging issues, including the failure to grant allowances when customers have experienced a water leak, which make up around 15% of these complaints, we will be asking all water companies to offer a customer-focused policy on their leakage allowance that mirrors their household policies. This will ensure that businesses get at least one allowance on their water charges and are provided with really important advice and assistance with leakage repairs. Our evidence has also shown a need to revisit the eligibility guidance and temporary building supplies within the competitive market. While complaints about eligibility have reduced year on year since 2017, we're still seeing them, and we know that retailers and wholesalers may not determine eligibility consistently, particularly for mixed-use premises. To resolve this for businesses, Ofwat need to provide greater clarity and consistency on premise eligibility for the market. And we want to work with them to improve the transition process when customers go in and out of the market, which is also an identified issue with temporary building supplies that's impacting customer service. We recommend removing all temporary building supplies from the market so that business customer premises only enter when a permanent water connection is completed. This will ensure domestic customers don't enter the water retail market in error. But until that happens, wholesalers should ensure data on temporary building supplies is correct. Moving on to another key area of our review, one of the important things a well-functioning market should offer is value-added services, and these act as a differentiator between competitors. Water efficiency services were one of the promised benefits from the introduction of the market. Our latest research shows that not enough awareness of the importance of saving water and that businesses lack the information they need to make important changes. Greater focus on water efficiency and the commitment to increasing smart metering from business customers is what's needed to happen to make improvements in this area. Our Testing the Waters tracking research carried out in 2020 found that 54% of businesses surveyed had taken no action to save water. And disappointingly, this rose to 61% in 2022, despite part of the research fieldwork occurring during the record-breaking summer drought. In order for business customers to be informed about their water usage, one of our recommendations requires companies to have a clear plan for smart metering for business customers in their water resources management plans and their PR24 business plans. In addition, we expect consideration to acceleration for those plans by prioritising customers that have meters left unread for 12 months or longer, those that live in water-stressed areas, and the provision of greater consumption data for high water-using businesses. It's also essential that water companies ensure data from improved metering technology is easily accessible and understandable for retailers and businesses. This will allow them to be billed on their actual water usage and give them the information they need to make informed decisions about water saving. To ensure customers are billed based on accurate and frequently read meters, this year we will also be submitting a Customer Protection Code of Practice change request to ensure businesses receive at least 2 bills based on actual meter reads each year. In addition to this focus on greater consumption data, to make sure customers get the information they need on how to make water savings for both financial and environmental benefits, we also recommend water companies and retailers work collaboratively together to provide the really important water efficiency services to their customers. Given the huge resource challenges that lie ahead, this is an area where there is a lot of potential to deliver benefits, not only for individual business customers, but also for water companies who are responsible to balance supply and demand, and also at a societal level where resilience to future droughts is important for a thriving country.
So we've introduced our recommendations around the issues that have been plaguing customers, and that's to help improve basic service levels received by all businesses. And this in turn will drive down complaints. So now we're going to quickly explore what needs to happen behind the scenes to improve the market for businesses. So currently there are various processes for changing the codes that determine how the market's run, the relationship between water companies and retailers, and provide customer protection. And all those code documents and the process for changing them are too slow and they lack transparency. The process for changing the market codes, that's the market arrangement codes and the wholesaler retailer code, needs to be more agile and weighted towards those changes that will deliver greatest customer benefit. Now, we're pleased that that change process are currently under review. And as part of the changes to be introduced later this year, we want to see CCW being given the right to propose code changes ourselves. There also has to be improvements to the process for changing the Customer Protection Code of Practice, as this is absolutely vital in determining the basic expectations between customers and their retailer. We want to see set timelines and deadlines by which Ofwat must have completed its review of any change proposals being made and received by Ofwat. We believe that no change request should take longer than 6 months to be considered, consulted on, and the decision made. 6 months into it. This will go a long way to improving the customer service and increasing protection where it's needed. We can't hang around on this issue. We will be continuing with our Credit Where It's Due campaign, which is seeking a change to the Customer Protection Code of Practice, and we'll work with Ofwat to implement our change request to require retailers to offer annual credit refunds to customers. This change will offer benefits to customers by giving financial protection against the risk of retailer failure. We also want to see this implemented alongside a guarantee of continuous service when a retailer exits the market. So these are some of the things that we want to see going on behind the scenes to slicken up the process of making change happen. But of course, it's not just behind the scenes stuff that needs to happen quickly. We want to see change happening swiftly across all areas, as trading parties have already had almost 6 years to get the basics right. However, it is only right to allow some time, but not unlimited time, to let the changes that we're recommending take effect and deliver the thing that's really crucial, which is improvements for business customers. We can't just keep on waiting and using the markets in its infancy line as an excuse for letting business customers down. It's totally nonsensical to have a market that's permanently in its infancy. Our recommendations are aimed at delivering improvements to the business retail market. As a result, we'd like to see tangible benefits for all business customers by 2025, and we'll be continually monitoring this, especially amongst the low water use businesses, and that's businesses that are using up to 0.5 megalitre of water per year, so quite similar to household in their use. Our evidence tells us that the smallest businesses have seen little benefit from the opening up of retail competition, with many retailers unaware that a market exists or have little desire to engage with it. Given the low value of the water bill in relation to other costs such as energy bills and business rates, and the lack of time and resources to explore other options, it might be that that current rate of engagement amongst the smallest customers will never significantly improve. The market will have to deliver clear improvements across a combination of price, customer service, and value-added services to potentially make it worth micro businesses' time and effort to get involved. By 2025, we would expect to see the total cumulative number of switches, that's the number of switches since market opening, by low water use businesses to increase by an additional 10 percentage points from the current level over the next 2 years. Similarly, we want to see an increase in contract renegotiation, and we want to see that go up by an additional 5 percentage points for those customers, the low water use customers, by 2025. Meeting those targets would show that the smallest businesses are engaging in the business retail market and would provide clear evidence that the market is providing an attractive offering for them. This would be our preferred outcome. The market exists and we want to see it work for all business customers. However, if these targets are not met within 2 years, we'll recommend a change of legislation to amend the market eligibility threshold in England so that low water use business customers are no longer eligible for the open market. In this scenario, this would be the best outcome for low water use businesses who are never likely to benefit from being in the market. So this concludes our brief canter through the recommendations. Please do check them out in full in the review itself, which is available right now from our website, hot off the press and in Welsh. And we'd now like to play you a short video showcasing what some of the retailers and water companies think about our recommendations.
I was really pleased to see the greater ambition and focus recommendation for water efficiency in your recommendations in the report, because that's what we've been waiting for really from Ofwat and wholesalers. We really think there's an opportunity there to work with businesses and help wholesalers deliver their plans. We've already been working with some wholesalers and doing some pilots, and we want to do more just to see what sort of model really works, and so we can really define exactly what collaboration looks like at PL24.
Here at Severn Trent, we're fully supportive of the introduction of a robust measure of business customer service experience. We feel that the important work carried out by the BMX working group laid strong foundations for the implementation of BRMX, and that it will drive improved service for our customers over the coming years as part of the reformed market performance framework.
So smart metering is absolutely key to managing the demand for water in Anglian's region, which is water scarce and really rapidly growing. And reducing the demand for water is also a vital part of improving the quality of our rivers and other habitats that rely upon groundwater in particular. So smart meters at the end of the day are right at the heart of this, and they mean that our customers not only get accurate bills, but they get real-time information that they can act upon. We've put in 500,000 smart meters across our household and non-household customers. 16,000 of those are non-household customers, and we've seen real benefits from them getting that timely information to reducing their demand. And they're making a really significant contribution to reducing the demand for water in the East. And at the end of the day, that's why we're happy to support CC Water's recommendations with respect to non-household customers moving on to smart meters.
So as an organisation, we have campaigned to really encourage the ADR scheme as reflective of the changes that we've seen with open market. I think it's really important to make all trading parties equally responsible for the service and the decisions for the services that we provide to customers. It also gives the customer a fair opportunity to challenge those trading parties when they remain unhappy with their scenario and the outcome of their complaint. So as an organisation, we've been really supportive of the changes that have been introduced to the ADR scheme.
So thank you to Mike and Christina for sharing that overview of our recommendations, and please do go to our website and have a read of the full document at your leisure. I'd now like to get an independent kind of perspective on the market and obviously the report that CCW has published today. And I'm delighted to welcome to the launch event Karma Loveday, the editor of Water Report, to share her views and thoughts at this time. So welcome, Karma.
Thanks, Emma, and good morning, everyone. So I've been invited to give an independent perspective on the 5-year review of the market. So I will start with some high-level observations. First of all, I think this piece of work absolutely needed doing. There's a lot of rhetoric around this market about it being customer-centric, but I think from a customer point of view, it doesn't always particularly feel that way. So a review that's based purely on customers' experience of the market with recommendations focused solely on changes to improve services for businesses is really welcome. Secondly, I would completely support the clear conclusion that CC Water draws that the market is failing to deliver for the vast majority of customers. I think it's refreshing that CCW hasn't just assumed that switched customers are all okay and completely fine. And I'm particularly pleased to see large customer issues acknowledged too. I think narratives that unequivocally say that large customers are benefiting from the market are a bit of a pet hate of mine, actually, because I think that's just not true. So I think it's a fair judgment from CCW to say that, yes, some large businesses have certainly benefited, but many are frustrated that the benefits that were promised in 2016 still haven't materialised. I really like the fact that the recommendations all fall within a maximum 2-year time frame, with many expected to deliver within the first year. I think that gives a real sense of urgency about the need for improvement, which is really welcome. And I think the fact that CC Water has spelled out clearly who needs to do what by when is also really helpful and really welcome. So turning to some of the specific recommendations, Christina and Mike have obviously just taken you through chapter and verse. So I'm just going to highlight a few that I particularly support. I always bang the drum for getting the basics right as a top priority. So on that basis, I would like to highlight in particular the recommendation that business customers must receive bills based on accurate and frequently read meters by 2024, delivered by a customer protection code of practice change and incentives via the market performance framework to tackle long unread meters. I suppose the only qualifying observation there would be that that hinges on getting the market performance framework reform right, and that's obviously work in progress. Relatedly, I really welcome CCW's support for an increase in smart metering. Personally, I would like to see a universal smart meter rollout. But in the absence of that, I think CCW's prioritisation criteria are really sensible. So long unread meters, water stressed areas and high users as a priority. And I absolutely agree with the need for wholesalers to make smart meter data available, understandable and consistent for retailers and customers as well. And perhaps would just add to that list, it should also be at low costs. On data quality, I absolutely support the recommendations for the Mosel data cleanse, which is obviously now going ahead, and for MPF incentives to ensure new data is of good quality. So looking beyond those all-important basics, I was really pleased to see some specific items in the review that actually don't affect many customers, but those they do affect, I think, are affected really significantly. So the recommendation to remove all temporary building supplies from the market, I think is really welcome and sensible. And the recommendation that Ofwat provides greater clarity and consistency on premises eligibility, I think it has been nothing short of a nightmare really for organisations like housing associations that straddle the household and non-household markets. So any greater clarity and consistency that can be brought there would be excellent. Finally, I wanted to mention the recommendation for greater ambition on water efficiency. I mean, this isn't quite the same in that it's not a pressing issue day to day for customers. And in fact, I think there's growing evidence that it's actually quite hard to engage customers in water efficiency initiatives. But clearly in a drought situation, water use does rocket up the priority list. And generally, I think we need to start articulating water efficiency as a business continuity and security of supply issue, rather than as a kind of nice to have CSR type add-on. So, I mean, how we get from A to B on water efficiency is really complex, and I think we'll need a suite of actions, but CC Water's recommendation regarding water resource management plans is a great place to start and can be done promptly. There's obviously been quite robust feedback already on the non-household elements of water resource management plans from a number of parties. Plus, we do now have the 9% business demand reduction target locked in to hopefully focus minds. Regarding the possibility of closing the market to the smallest customers, should their participation rates not pick up? I mean, clearly that is the most contentious element of the whole review. My view is I do agree that these customers shouldn't stay in the situation that they are currently in, which is pretty much being in the market in name only, but many of them not even knowing it exists. That does feel to me a bit like a tick box exercise so that we can say all business customers have choice, but in practice that choice isn't really very real. So that doesn't feel like a very authentic position to try to maintain. So on that basis, I think it is helpful that CCW has been brave enough to bring this question of taking those small customers out of the market into the light, and has suggested a time frame and some metrics for making that decision. I suppose my concern is that while the 10% switching increase suggested is not infeasible, I think it will be challenging given where we're starting from in terms of very low levels of awareness, and also given the continuation of highly protective price caps for Group 1 customers. These won't provide retailers with the flexibility that many would have liked to drive greater customer engagement and a more competitive environment generally. So I think on balance, most stakeholders would agree that the best possible outcome we could have here would be to make the market work better for small users rather than giving up on them and taking them out of the market. So I would just encourage everyone to look on CCW's recommendation as a spur to collaborate at pace to find out why these small customers are not engaging at the moment, and to draw up a plan to make the market work better for them. I think realistically that's probably the best place we can go from here on this issue. And finally, I was just going to offer a few suggested builds on the CCW recommendations, and these are pretty much drawn from my engagement and interaction with large customers. So firstly, on customer service, I think it would be great to extend CCW's focus on water company corporate culture to wholesalers and retailers in the non-household space. Business customers, I think, often see a mismatch between stated company policy at senior level and how they are treated by wholesaler and retailer staff in practice. I mean, just in the last few months, I've had customers say that staff sometimes don't seem to understand how things work, can give out the wrong information, and sometimes just don't seem to be particularly bothered about the consequences for customers. So I think it would be really beneficial to see attention from wholesaler and retailer leaders on cultivating a more customer-centric culture and ensuring customer-facing personnel have the right training and the right attitudes to offer better levels of service. Secondly, I think anything to drive more consistency in the market would be welcome, particularly for multi-sites, and this would build on the benefits that have already been demonstrated from the bilaterals programme. And finally, on data quality, I think to build on CCW's recommendation that smart meter data should be available for customers, I know many large users have long said they would also like access to their own customer and site information in CMOS so they can check it's accurate and support data improvement efforts. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide some initial reflections on the report.
Thanks, Karma. Great to get your reflections on the recommendations. And of course, that's really good to hear the kind of initial views from Karma. But of course, we want to engage much more widely and more broadly over the next few weeks and months and get further feedback and further discussion about where we can take all this stuff, because that's really an important point that we want to be doing all this together. So before we move into the Q&A panel discussion, I'm going to quickly run through what's happening in terms of next steps. Now, we fully intend this review to drive changes. This isn't window dressing. The review is not the end of the process. In fact, it's just the beginning. It's time for all of us in the sector to roll up our sleeves and double down on our efforts to date. Our forward programme, which was recently out for consultation, is a cracking read, and I'm sure you've all read it and familiar with it. But just in case you're not, I'll just remind you that business customers are a prominent feature of our work in going into the future. And we clearly signalled in our forward programme that we will focus on acting on the recommendations from this review. As we said earlier, for some of the recommendations we'll be leading on, but for many of the others, it will be other groups that are taking the lead, and we will be supporting and assisting to ensure that change is happening. A collaboration is absolutely vital here because there's not a single organisation that can do this alone. So we'll continue to work in partnership with Ofwat, with DEFRA, with the Code Change Committee, the Strategic Panel, MOSL, and of course, trading parties. And we will constantly talk directly to business customers. And we do this on a daily basis through our complaints handling and through other means to ensure that all our collective efforts are being focused in the right places. You can see when you look at the recommendations that we made that there is a very strong alignment between our recommendations and the direction that's already been flagged for the market by the strategic panel, especially with their stated strategic outcomes of customer service excellence, value creation, and water efficiency. And right now, there does seem to be a number of organisations who are trying to pull in the same direction, and there's that willingness and appetite for change and an impatience that we can't just keep on doing what we're doing. We have to focus that hunger for change into making tangible differences for business customers, because that's ultimately what matters. So we will be tracking progress over the next few years, both in terms of delivering the actions from the review and, of course, continuing to track the experiences of business customers. And this will allow us to hold ourselves and others to account. And it will also help us identify where more effort is needed to be placed. We know that there's going to be other actions. You know, this report isn't the only game in town. There'll be other actions, or initiatives, or pilots that will also help drive improvements. And we want to work constructively and broadly across the sector to improve the market for business customers through these recommendations and from action more broadly too. And we look forward to working with you on this. So finally, I do want to thank the team at Mosel and the strategic panel for the joint work we did together to produce the customer synthesis report that provided vital supporting evidence for this review. That report was released at the end of January and is available on our website and on Mosel's website. But I would especially want to thank the CCW team, particularly Christina and the team and our comms guys who have worked tirelessly as well to get the report out the door and completed. It's been pretty much a year's work, and it's been a slog and a joyous activity, hasn't it? So yeah, so a big thank you from me to the team to produce this review. So it's now time for the Q&A, which is being led by Emma.
Okay, thank you, Mike, Christina, Karma, and everyone involved there in both the videos and obviously our introduction to the report. Please do keep your questions coming on Slido. I hope you can now see the details on your screen, so please do keep those questions coming. So we've had a few already, which is brilliant. So I'll just dive in to this next part of our launch event where we are looking forward to answering any questions that you have for us and obviously listening to your early reflections. So one of the first questions that has come in is, one of the promised benefits from competition was savings for customers. Has CCW looked at how the retail charges for small businesses compare to household customers? So Mike and Christina, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. In fact, something we've been talking about as a team very recently. And it's quite interesting that the fact that it's actually quite hard to work that out says quite a lot about some of the issues that exist in the market. You know, it's hard to find out some of that information, which I think does speak to a real challenge, particularly for the smaller businesses, to be able to access information about what they might be charged if they do decide to switch retailer. So there's not a categorical answer that yes, they would save or no, they wouldn't, because I think it's hard to find out. I think in some instances it may be yes, in some instances maybe no. So, and that's the honest answer. That's something that we are going to continue to focus on because it's a really important point.
Perhaps we could take some typical, which is not a great word, is it? But some typical customers and seek to make those comparisons as part of our follow-up work. So, okay.
Yes, no, we'll absolutely be following this one up.
Brilliant. Thank you, and thank you for the question. I'm now just looking in my chat at the next one. So, okay, so why the focus on numbers rather than outcomes? Surely it's about the quality of service and the levels of consumption rather than switches. So again, I'll pass that to Christina and Mike, but I would encourage us all to have a look at the report, because I think you'll find comfort in there in the sense that you know, we are clear about what we want to see in terms of outcomes, and we want to be specific about measures of success in order to be able to see progress, you know. So that's why we kind of challenged ourselves to have these very clear measures so that we can you know, judge progress, because I think it would be the danger otherwise is that we'll end up just having a kind of subjective discussion otherwise. So but Christina, do you want to lead on that one first? Or Mike, sorry.
Yeah, well, just on the point about outcome, ideally you would want to look at outcome. Yeah, are business customers satisfied, and are the smaller businesses satisfied in particular, given the focus on that one of the key recommendations we've made. The issue we have is that when you dig into it, that there are many businesses who don't even know the market exists, and they are not experiencing any problems. They're paying roughly what they used to pay. So they're going, yeah, I'm quite satisfied. So it's not a great measure of whether the market is delivering for them, because they've not even realized there's a market. So you have to then say, okay, you can't use that outcome. You need to use something else. And that's why switching is a useful proxy, because people won't go to the effort of switching unless they see potential from going through that exercise. Hence why switching rates and renegotiation rates are a sensible measure to use in this instant. So I agree, the principle is that clearly the outcome would be better, but using switching as a proxy for that, because they're switching because they think they will get something better service or cost or some value added products is the right way to go on this one. And just on the rates that we picked, we looked across other sectors, we looked at comms, we looked at energy, and actually the targets we've set, and I know Karma kind of said, well, these might be challenging. I don't agree with that. I think they are realistic and achievable, and I think they should act to really focus the minds of all of us to make that work. And we do. I said this earlier, but I agree with Karma. The best situation is we've got a market. Let's make it work.
Yeah. Just to add to what Mike said in terms of this is the whole reason why we've set these recommendations, that we want to deliver benefits to all customers, and this is why we're giving a 2-year period, and we won't just be looking at we won't just be looking at numbers of switching, and we'll be looking across the board at how those customers, and customers all of all sizes, are they seeing the benefits that we hope they would see from these clear recommendations we're making to drive forward the much needed changes that are needed right now.
Okay, thank you both. Yeah, this is obviously a theme. There's another question or comment popped in about why would switching be seen as an important factor? Surely customer satisfaction is key. So I hope we've gone some way to reassure you that it is a basket of measures, and certainly, of course, customer satisfaction is critical and something that we at CCW care about deeply. We've also got some comments coming into Slido, which is really helpful. So there's one saying, good point from Karma, recurrent price caps for low use customers are limiting the potential for sufficiently competitive offerings to drive that 10% switching. So there's a comment there in support of Karma's helpful remarks earlier. Okay, so going back to the specific questions, so how can your recommendations to temporary building supplies assure the market that better data is reaching the end customer? So there's a particular question around temporary building supplies there. Christina, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I think this question has got 2 answers really. In terms of our recommendations, I mean, this is built on that we know that customers are being let down by the administration issues that sit within the temporary building supplies process. When the development is taking place, there's no clarity between whether that temporary building supply is happening right now, and then the customer lacks that clarity on the bit then being built and who's going to be building them, which retailer is going to be building them. So in ensuring that we feel at the moment, until changes are made to remove temporary building supplies from the market, it's absolutely right that wholesalers are given clear responsibility right from the start to state it's a temporary building supply, so there's a clarity given to customers. And our other recommendation centres around making sure that household customers, once the new connection is made, don't remain in error in the business retail market, and that's not going to help obviously their services right from the get-go.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Christina. Another question here. Given the proposal to change the code of practice to have customers build on a minimum of 2 actual reads per year, what is CCW's view on the responsibility for meter reading? So a hot topic.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that, at least start it, and then Christina can pick up the pieces. What's important there when you dig into this one? Well, first of all, let's start with the customer, right? We did some research on this about 18 months ago, and it's quite clear that customers, particularly the smallest customers, wanted this. They wanted 2 meter reads a year. They want to know what they use. They want to know what they're paid and what they're being charged for the water. So let's just use that as a bit of a baseline there, because that's really important. Now, I'm sure there was a sharp intake of breath, particularly from retailers on that. That's going to cost. But actually, we are saying one of those actual reads can come from the customers, right? That can be a customer-driven read. So that again makes sense, and customers can provide that. And I know that some retailers encourage their customers to give monthly reads, for example. Again, that makes sense. Also, if you take a step back and look at the recommendations in the round, we're pushing for a drive for smart metering. Again, that makes the act of getting those meter reads much, much easier as well. So what we're not saying is we're just trying to drive more and more expense onto retailers. What we're trying to say is this is a really customer focused recommendation. And actually, if you take our recommendations in the round, think that actually this is a really sensible one and a good way forward. Anything you want to add, Christina?
No, that sounds sensible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a question here that has got a lot of letters in it, so I'm now going to try and interpret those letters, which of course highlights one of the challenges of the market. But anyway, the recommendation to remove TBS from the NHS, NHS even, I agree with, was recently reviewed by Ofwat, but they have decided not to remove that customer groups. How will this recommendation change their view? Mike?
Christina?
Yeah, it was really clear from our analysis and what we're getting in terms of the complaints coming in from customers that there is still that appetite, that it doesn't feel right for customers, and it's not really working for the market for temporary building supplies to remain as a competitive activity. So it's important that, and this is what we stated right from the start, that this is all about stating that evidence and building a very strong case for these recommendations, and we want to be working with Ofwat to look at that, but we recognise that change can't happen on all our recommendations so quickly. So this is why we've put in the other recommendation for, in the interim, for the water companies to take clear responsibility for flagging in the market when it is a temporary building supply, so that customer service journey can be improved from where it is right now.
I think there is something as well that speaks to the agility of the market here, that you know, something was considered a year ago or 6 months ago. Yeah. Why can't it be done again? The rate of change at this point, it does these things then look difficult. But actually, we're saying let's slicken up that process. Let's get more agile. And you know what? We know we can do this. We were talking to the Mosul team about this yesterday. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, lots of changes were made very quickly to the market, and all credit to everyone on that, right? And people worked very, very hard to do that, and it shows it can be done with that focus. What we need to have is that kind of focus now to say, we can't be happy with the work's going on now. Let's change it. Let's collectively pull together. And yeah, sometimes it might be, organizations may have to say, okay, we made that decision and now we're going to have to reconsider based on the evidence. That's okay. That's just people being rational and showing a bit of humility.
Okay, thank you. What about businesses such as churches that operate on a voluntary basis? Should they be within the non-household market? Is there a benefit, and is this being looked at? So, I mean, and I know certainly from our complaints data that group, the often quoted Scout Hut, etc., often have very complicated complaints which really cost voluntary organisations dearly, both in terms of money, but also in terms of time and emotional impact. So what do we think about that group?
I mean, it's in terms of our review, I will admit we haven't specifically looked at those changes for customers, but Mike made very clear in his summary of our recommendations and work going forward that you know, with new data and new things to consider, we can bring that in within our recommendations, and we've asked for a review of eligibility, so that could form part of that work. Because if it's absolutely clear that these customers aren't getting the best services from being in the non-household market, we need to look for that evidence. We need to build that strong case. But also, if the church is, or a Scout Hut is only being used, well, I mean, I know some churches are used all the time, so you know, maybe not the best example, but a Scout Hut, if it's got a low water use, then it's captured in the group one customers. So actually, I think that recommendation is valid, and is a good illustration actually of the type of customer that you'd say, actually, should they be in the market?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just to clarify, all of the questions that are coming in, if we don't get time to address on our live launch right now, then we will be responding to all of those questions, and we will be posting those responses on our website. So there will be follow-up to everything that you're asking, whether I get time to read them out or not. So please be assured about that. Okay, great question here. A lot of proposals could leave a very thin market for retailers. They would need to diversify to differentiate themselves? Does CCW see that happening? I think that's a fair challenge. Who wants to take that one?
Well, I think the first point is that the REC review has concluded, and what we haven't seen yet is what that means in terms of implementation and the impact on sort of retailers' margins. So there's a question about how is that going to land in reality? Okay. Second point though is that absolutely, I think it's in customers' interest for retailers to diversify, whether that's additional value-add services related to water or other services related to utilities more widely. Or there may be other things too. Lots of water companies, or my water company certainly bugs me. I can't even think about my water company before I get a letter saying sign up for this insurance policy, to protect my pipe. So there are plenty of options for diversification. I think if done well, these are well and truly in the customer's interest. So yeah, we'd like to see more of that, and we would not want to be hampering that kind of innovation at all. Anything that makes it easier for customers to either save water or bundle or do other things, it's got to be a good thing if done well.
And is it fair to say that there is an argument that the cost to serve for the group of customers we're highlighting anyway is high, and the profit is therefore low? So there's that position too, isn't there? I guess. Yeah,
I mean, that's back to my point about the REC. The REC review has really looked at some of this stuff, and what we don't quite know is how that lands in practice yet. Yeah. Because it's not kicking in until next month.
Thank you, Christina. Have you anything to add, or has Mike stole all the thunder again?
He stole the thunder on that one.
Okay, sort of a more practical, tactical question now. Is there any way of tracking where customers have renegotiated their contracts, and is this information available? So I guess, that's something we would need to do in partnership with others, isn't it? But any comments on that kind of theme?
Yeah, in terms of our report, the way that we've got data around that is preliminary. I can't say the word preliminary from our research. So every time we go out with our tracking research, we will ask customers about their activity, and that's broken down by switching, renegotiation, appetite to look at their options to navigate around the market. And it's not to say that we couldn't enhance that data by, as you rightly say, Emma, working with others to try and understand that data. And particularly, I'm thinking about working, with Mosul on this information.
I'd certainly like to do some research and that looks at the Group 1 customers. So the small water users, jargon alert. The low water users, and look at that group in a bit more detail to understand if there is any kind of statistically significant difference in satisfaction. And this actually goes right back to the very first question, between Group 1 customers who have switched and Group 1 customers who haven't switched, for whatever reason, whether they knew the market exists or not. See if there's a difference in satisfaction there, because that would actually go some way to answer that question about what to do with that group as well. So that's something I think we should be taking forward as another action. We've just changed the review already. But this is why we do this stuff, right? Because by talking about it, you start thinking more and more things that you can do. So I think that would be a really interesting, important piece of research to carry out. So I think we should do it. There we are. There's a live commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that is the spirit, in which we are offering these recommendations. Right at the beginning, we said we wanted to be constructive and challenging, and part of those process, of course, means listening, doesn't it? And revising and amending what happens next in light of the feedback that you give us, but while obviously having that very clear focus and telling very clear messages about how the market is currently impacting customers. So question here, does CCW agree that the market requires more open competition and leniency for meter installs? So again, we would very clearly come back to what works for customers, and I think we've touched on the point around meter installs, but again, Mike and Christina, any comments there? So again, does CCW agree that the market requires more open competition and leniency for meter installs?
I mean, I think obviously with meter installation, because you're fiddling around with a wholesaler's network, you can be very careful about what you're letting other people do to your network. What I would say on this, though, is that, and Christina, feel free to please do build on this, but I do think there's important relational issues and cultural issues that need to be sorted out here, because you know, I think a lot of the issues still. There's still a lot of hangover from market opening in terms of people being afraid to have sensible and constructive and conversations because of some threat of competition law kicking in. And I think in a lot of cases, this is misguided. And actually, you know, I think a lot more could be done through actually just having a healthier culture, not just within companies, but between wholesalers and retailers, and in the sector more widely. I think a lot of progress could be made with that.
Yeah. I suppose to just build on what you've said about sort of the culture, and I think a lot of our recommendations do really focus on how water companies and retailers can really work together to deliver strong benefits to business customers, to really focus on improving customer service. And I'm hopeful that a lot of our recommendations will drive that behaviour further, but you know, really want to make it clear that we want to see that clear working relationship with the ultimate benefit and the ultimate focus on being on better service for customers.
Absolutely, and I think that is such an important point. And again, we see it in the evidence that comes from our complaint handling time and time again. And indeed, that's also at the heart of one of our recommendations about ADR, isn't it? You know, the customer doesn't see the joins that exist artificially in the market in terms of the service that we provide them. I think we're just really now almost on time. We've probably got just a couple of minutes for one last short question. So I'm just looking at literally the last one that's popped up is about vacancy rates. So no mention of vacancy rates question. Are retailers working hard enough to ensure all occupied premises are being billed properly?
Yeah, I mean, we with our involvement on many of the working groups that are taking place across the market to deliver real benefits, we can see there is a focus of looking at vacancy rates. But I would sort of pull back from that a little in terms of the content of our report. That was very much based on customer evidence, what research was telling us, what complaints was telling us, and probably not surprisingly, we don't really get complaints from business customers of that nature. But I wouldn't say, you know, it is important that where it is clear that there is water being used at a business customer premises, that those business customers are built onto that are charged, and they actually are brought into a service so they can start to take some of the benefits that the market can start to drive and deliver.
Yeah, it's just fair, isn't it? Yeah, which therefore speaks to an efficient market. But thank you, Christina, that's brilliant. Okay, I think it's time to bring our live stream to an end. Although, as Mike said earlier, it's not the end, it's the beginning. So please now pop over to our website, have a look at the research that was there from January, if you haven't had a look already, and the report and its conclusions. We will, as I mentioned, be posting answers to all these fantastic questions on our website, and really look forward to any further thoughts that you have as we drive forward, working together to deliver a better business market for customers. So thank you once again for joining our live stream, and I look forward to seeing you soon.